Welcome back to AfricaCom 2018, where we are shaping Africa's digital future. We continue with a focus on 5G, and this time around we say hello to Giovanni Chiarelli, the CTIO at MTN. You, as an MTN, is investing a lot into 5G, and in fact you're responsible for some of the first sort of programs into Africa in 5G. Tell us why you're doing this.
Yeah, so in terms of effort and internal IP, I think we are obviously dedicating resources. In terms of funding, it's still a very preliminary phase. So when you are talking about investment, there is a significant human investment, but in terms of real capex, is not yet there, because our aim is really to experiment and trial before taking any decision. Yeah.
And what promise does 5G hold for Africa?
Yeah, so that's also a question that I had during the panel that we ran earlier, because somebody is thinking about 5G as the latest and greatest for the top urban areas.
Correct.
Yeah, which is definitely true, but there is also a significant potential for other areas like the rural areas as well. So in reality, it's really another step in terms of evolution of the technology that can suit multi-purposes.
In your playing around with it and trialing it, have you identified any obstacles that we're going to need to overcome before we get to a point where we realize it fully?
Yes, absolutely. So on one side, from a technology perspective, the technology step by step is coming. But there are still some standards that have to be finalized. So on one side, the technology still needs some maturity. On the other side, the topic of the devices is very, very important. Yeah. So to find 5G ready devices today, it's almost impossible. There are very few already in the world, but very few. So this is a second element in the equation that has to be unlocked in order to help the technology to flourish. Then obviously we have the element of the regulation and the spectrum. Yeah, this is super, super important. And obviously working in South Africa, today we are still in a phase in which there is not yet a clear definition for the LTE, so the 4G spectrum. As you can imagine, 5G spectrum discussion, it's even more complex. But being the spectrum almost the oxygen of the mobile network, without that you cannot develop anything significant. So that's a crucial point as well.
Are we seeing an appetite, though, to engage from the regulators to realize that 5G is the way forward? We need to be serious about the spectrum conversations around LTE, 4G, and already start having those conversations about 5G?
Very, very preliminary discussions. So. But I joined MTN South Africa 2 years ago, so at least compared to 2 years ago, there is a lot of discussion around the spectrum
good, yeah.
in general terms, which is already good, let me say. Now the point is still very focused on LTE, which is also correct, because we have a lot of demand there, and part of the potential of the LTE technology has not been unleashed yet due to spectrum. Not yet a clear discussion on 5G, even if probably the time is already mature, because once you have a spectrum, then you can develop the technology and not the opposite.
I'm going to ask you to gaze into the future for me for a second. Imagine we're at AfricaCom 2028, 10 years from now. What will be the lay of the land when it comes to this technology?
So at that time, first of all, I think our interview could be around 6G and not 5G.
Good point, yes.
Yeah? So that's one element. So probably we will find ourselves in a reality which is not just always connected, because today we are already always connected, yeah? But really where technology is pervasive, so millions of sensors in a very small surface. So our clothes, our shoes, obviously all the other gadgets to monitor the environment and so on and so forth. In an environment like that, probably you could have a million of devices bringing us information, and maybe through our glasses to read those relevant informations for us, for our health, for the next appointment, for somebody who is looking for us, and so on and so forth. That could be maybe the future.
And so it's important for you and the leadership at MTN South Africa to ensure innovation and creativity from your team so that you're always a step ahead of the rest of your competition.
Yeah, that's a very important topic. I think for us, if you look at our journey in the last 2 years, almost the 2017 was almost dedicated to have the right basics. Yeah, so to improve the experience in terms of the technologies that we had already in place, and after that, I think we have regained also credibility to talk about innovation. So at the end of last year, we started, for example, those 5G trials, and now we are investigating more and more, and we are talking about that. I think from a different point of credibility compared to the past.
Giovanni, thank you very much for joining us here
Thank
this
you very
afternoon,
much.
and I wish you a wonderful rest of AfricaCom 2018.
Thank you again. My pleasure.
Fantastic.